Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The sooner I'm finished and President Seligman is finished, the sooner we can get out to the gallery. So we will get going here. I'm Bob Whitmer, Chairman Emeritus of the Board, and on behalf of Ed Hagem, the Chairman, who sends his regrets and cannot join us, and in my fellow trustees, many of whom are here, I want to welcome you to the 42nd Annual Garden Party. In prior years, I have tried to set the stage a little bit for the President's remarks by reminding us of the 5 objectives, primary objectives, which the trustees had established when we brought Joel here. And I think that's still useful. And very, very quickly, and objectives, framework within which we can all listen to what we will hear later from the President. Those objectives are to increase the endowment, maybe I can stop there, no, but that's to gain the national recognition for the university that we think is appropriate, to promote diversity is a very important part of our objectives, to maintain the strong leadership within a very diverse organization and decentralized organization that we have, and 5th, to be a positive force within the Rochester community. Last year, I mentioned that leadership really counts, and we heard about strategic plans in place and activities and the momentum that this university has enjoyed under Joel Seligman. This year, that is even more true. Some leaders are good for particular times. I submit the real test of a leader is when he or she can maintain that momentum and the leadership when the whole landscape changes almost out from under you. And that's, in some respects, what we have seen in the past year or so with our economy, as we all know, and also with, of course, the recent tragedy that befell Brad Berk, and leader of our medical center. Through that, we have had a president who has taken thoughtful, decisive, where necessary, swift action, has maintained the spirit of this university of ours, the spirit of optimism, and throughout it all has recognized that these actions impact people and their families, and has been empathetic in these decisions that have been necessary to make. So it is my rare privilege again to welcome to the podium the 10th President of the University of Rochester and my good friend, Joel Seligman. Joel.
There are few pleasures that quite equal being introduced by my good friend, Bob Whitmer. Thank you, Bob, for those lovely remarks. There's an old story in Washington about a congressman who used to read a lot of speeches, and one day he began by saying, "Before I begin my speech, I'd like to say something." And in that spirit, I'd like to give everyone a progress report on Brad. He's wonderful colleague, a great friend to so many of us. We all know he was very severely injured about 11 days ago while bicycling in Canandaigua. And it's going to be a long haul before he's recovered. But the progress has begun. And it may sound strange given the seriousness of the injury, but every time I see him, I feel inspired. There's more movement. He's got a remarkable sense of humor. And to ask him, what do you most need? And have Brad look you in the eye and say, I want food. May not sound like the deep intellectual conversation you would expect from academic leaders. I asked him when I saw him just a few hours ago, what would he most like me to share on his behalf with the audience at the garden party? And he instantly said, 4 more months. And that's his way of saying he hopes he'll be back then. I think that may be overly optimistic, but there should be no mistake on anyone's part. Brad wants to come back, and knowing his determination, knowing what extraordinary physical fitness he's in, I am very optimistic he'll be back on the job whatever number of months it takes. Now, we're very fortunate at the University of Rochester to have an extraordinary senior leadership team at the medical center. And in the months to come, Mark Taubman, who, like Brad, was the chair of the Department of Medicine, will be the acting CEO. And no one should have any doubt we will not skip a beat. We've got our strategic plan. We're committed to implementing it. The medical center is going to move forward. Brad added one more thing, and this he did not mean, I suspect, facetiously. Build PRISM. The ambition is unquenched. So I'm just delighted to give that report. It's going to be a while before he's fully back, but I'm convinced in my heart he's coming back. Let me shift gears. And I suppose if I were the congressman, this is the formal part of the speech. The true measure of a social institution is not how well it does when times are good, but whether it thrives when times are hard. By that measure, in what was an extraordinarily challenging year, the University of Rochester had a very solid year last year. Now, historians will mark this year as the crash of 2008. Between selected dates in October 2007 and March 2009, the Dow Jones Industrial Average declined by 54%. We saw a dramatic rise in national unemployment from 4.9% to 9.4%. Business institutions long believed to be a permanent part of our economic landscape, such as Merrill Lynch, General Motors, Chrysler, failed or nearly failed and went through rescue mergers or bankruptcy reorganization. These types of economic events inevitably had an impact on the university. Our endowment lost approximately 20% so far this year, and after withdrawals for spending has dropped from about $1.7 billion, where it was on June 30th, 2008, to approximately $1.35 billion as of May 31, 2009. We have responded by reducing our endowment payout from a projected $98.2 million for the next year to $83 million. This type of response should be seen in context. Counting our hospitals and affiliates, the university next year will have a $2.1 billion budget. University academic programs essentially are supported by 4 types of financial support: tuition, sponsored research, gifts, and endowment payout. Most of our academic divisions are tuition-driven, including the College of Arts, Sciences, and Engineering, the Simon Graduate School of Business, the Warner School of Education, and the School of Nursing. Losses in endowment, while serious, are in most of our schools only a small part of the financial picture. The very good news is that we saw increases in applications in virtually every school, and it was a record year for applications to our largest undergraduate program, the College of Arts, Sciences, and Engineering. Early decision applications were up by 25%. What is particularly gratifying is that we saw progress not only in the number of applications, but also in quantitative measures of quality and in diversity. Last year, our substantial progress in sponsored research funding continued, led by peer-reviewed federal government support through agencies such as the National Institutes of Health, popularly known as NIH, and the National Science Foundation. This growth is likely to continue. Earlier this year, Congress enacted the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Within the $787 billion economic stimulus package is $10.4 billion for NIH, $3 billion for the National Science Foundation, $1.6 billion for the Department of Energy Research Programs, and $20 billion for health information technology. By May 2009, the University of Rochester had submitted 385 research proposals requesting $173 million in additional support and had begun to receive initial awards. On April 27th of this year, President Obama made what history someday may recall as one of the most significant speeches of his administration. Remarks that may prove to be the equivalent of President Kennedy's declaration to Congress in 1961 that this nation should commit itself before the decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. The President proposed reorienting our national priorities toward spending 3% of our gross domestic product on research and development. That's $420 billion. If this or a significant part of this initiative is achieved, research universities, such as the University of Rochester, will play a pivotal role. Research universities today already are the research labs of this nation. With the closing of business facilities such as Bell Labs, the role of research universities, such as the University of Rochester, in basic and applied research has been dramatically amplified. The University of Rochester is particularly well positioned to participate in an expansion of sponsored research. In February 2009, the Association of University Technology Managers, for the 7th year in a row, recognized the University of Rochester as one of the top 10 institutions in the country for revenues it receives from licensed technologies. To be sure, this academic year will prove one in which our record-breaking pace of increased giving by alumni and friends will decline, as giving has nationally. But let me express my particular gratitude for the great support that was provided by our alumni and friends during a very hard year. It is impossible to overstate how much this meant to us, and it is impossible to overstate how grateful we were that you, as always, were there for us. Indeed, in a different sense, this year was a year of extraordinary commitments led by our Board of Trustees. Last fall, Ed Hagem, the chair of our board, made the largest single gift commitment in the university's 159-year history. Ed designated that his $30 million gift benefit engineering education. In his honor, the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences was recently renamed the Edmund A. Hagem School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Last month, Ernie and Thelma Del Monte contributed an initial $10 million to to help us create the Ernest J. Del Monte Neuromedicine Institute, which will be housed in a building previously known by the less than mellifluous acronym MRBX. The university believes in transparency, so I'll explain: Medical Research Building Extension. The University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry has been among the nation's leaders in neurology and neurosurgery, with particular prominence in Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, multiple dystrophy, stroke, and Huntington's. The university also has great strengths in the college's brain and cognitive sciences program. The Del Monte Institute will now give us the space to bring many of our researchers and programs together in a single location. The core of the University of Rochester involves our commitments to academic excellence, academic freedom, diversity, and working with the community. We applied these fundamental values in our response to the economic emergency. We focused on protecting our academic and clinical core, faculty, students, and staff, while making the budget cuts necessary to achieve fiscal responsibility and position us for future growth. We made relatively modest reductions in staff. Of 19,441 employees as of December 31, 2008, only 50 have lost their jobs to date, though I regret every one of these losses. To preserve jobs, we implemented a salary program which froze salaries for those earning above $40,000. The faculty and staff deserve enormous credit for their universal support of this program. We made cuts in virtually every discretionary spending area of the university, including savings in energy, purchases from vendors, central administrative and operational and maintenance budgets, and significant economies in the medical center while protecting patient care. At the same time, recognizing the financial stress that our students and their families face today, the college increased financial aid by close to $10 million in the upcoming year for undergraduate and graduate students. Significant construction continues at the University of Rochester. In September 2008, the university opened its new health service facility near our student dorms on the River campus. I have watched with delight as the long-developing plans for Brooks Landing were implemented this year. We have now truly crossed the river. In August 2008, Riverview Apartments opened and now house nearly 400 university undergraduates. Riverview was popular with students in its first year when it rented out. There is an even higher level of student enthusiasm for the apartments for the second year, which will be upcoming this August. In November 2008, Staybridge Suites and Boulder Coffee opened at Brooks Landing. This marked the beginning of a college town in the 19th Ward. This spring, several university departments, including our Employment Center and Finance Department, relocated to the Brooks Landing Business Center, a new 28,000 square foot office building in which the university is the lead tenant and occupies 20,000 square feet. Economic conditions have led us to temporarily delay some projects, most notably the Pediatric Replacement and Imaging Sciences Modernization, or PRISM wing, of Strong Memorial Hospital. But construction of the Clinical and Translational Science Building at the Medical Center has begun. This 200,000 square foot facility will be located at Crittenden Avenue, immediately adjacent to our School of Nursing, and will build on the university's great strengths in applied medical research, as earlier evidenced by the efforts of our doctors Reichman, Bonet, and Rose, who helped develop the world's first cancer vaccine. Our new 52,000 square foot outpatient ambulatory surgery center will soon open on Sawgrass Drive and address the fastest growing area of clinical activity. The renovation of Eastman Theater's Kodak Hall is on time and on October 8th, the Rochester Philharmonic will open its season there. Eastman graduate Renee Fleming will be the star of the university's official gala to salute the renovation of Eastman Theater at a date to be determined during the 2009-2010 academic year. The following academic year, we will open the new wing of Eastman Theater featuring the new Hatch Recital Hall. We remain a university on the move. While the economic emergency has slowed our progress towards our strategic plans, our vision endures. We picked stretch goals, but the enthusiasm of our board, administrators, faculty, students, staff, and alumni remains high. We are proud of what we have accomplished. We intend to achieve a good deal more in the years to come. Now, why does this matter to the Rochester community? Tonight, I would like to share examples of University of Rochester researchers, clinicians, and scholars who are transforming ideas into action and improving the lives of all of us. To put it simply, research universities are the most important social institutions in our society today because their research, teaching, performing arts, and community service have so profound an impact in creating the democratic, economically vibrant, tolerant, and dynamic society that we all seek. Let me begin at the medical center with a medical miracle. Corey Milbourne, by the way, is with us tonight, was born 15 weeks prematurely, weighing 1 pound, 8 ounces. Just moments after his birth, Golisano Children's Hospital neonatalist whisked Corey down the hall to the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, or NICU, where he would spend more than 3 months successfully fighting for his life. Here Corey is, just 2 weeks ago, helping lead the Golisano Children's Hospital's 13th annual stroll for strong kids. Thanks to neonatologists like Sanjeev Amin and nurses like Heather Gertzman, our NICU is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to serve patients throughout Rochester and the 17-county Finger Lakes region. For its victims and their families and friends, Tourette's syndrome, with its uncontrollable tics and verbalizations, sometimes is a terrifying disorder. Roger Curlin, a University of Rochester professor of neurology, made a defining discovery more than 2 decades ago. A patient named David Jansen hitchhiked more than 2,000 miles from Lacrete, Alberta, a remote Mennonite farming village, to seek a second opinion from Roger. David had been misdiagnosed with Huntington's disease, but to Roger, David showed classic signs of Tourette's, and to Roger's amazement, David described a dozen other relatives, all living in Lacrete, with similar symptoms. Roger assembled a research team and traveled to Lacrete, where he found evidence that demonstrated the hereditary nature of Tourette's. This finding has revolutionized the way doctors treat Tourette's syndrome. Roger is now leading a multi-center clinical study of a new experimental treatment for the syndrome and directs the Tourette's Syndrome Study Group, an international network of researchers who are involved in almost every major clinical study of this disease. More than 26 million people worldwide currently live with Alzheimer's disease. That number may quadruple to more than 100 million individuals by 2050, unless a cure or effective treatment is found. Research by neurology professor Betsa Slokovich is making progress in identifying a treatment for Alzheimer's disease. Betsa and his team have made a promising discovery that identifies 2 proteins that work in tandem in the brain's blood vessels. This surprising finding highlights the vascular roots of Alzheimer's. The significance of Betsa's work has been recognized in 2 extraordinary honors he has recently received: the MetLife Foundation Award for Medical Research in 2007, and just a few months ago, the Potamkin Prize from the American Academy of Neurology. Each year, more than 2,000 Americans undergo heart transplant surgery. Heart transplant surgery can be short-circuited if patients develop a deadly complication known as transplant arteriopathy, a condition in which cells within the heart's arteries become inflamed and choke off blood flow. Assistant Professor of Medicine Jeffrey Alexis, a transplant cardiologist, is working with smooth muscle cells in cultures to identify the cause of arteriopathy and potentially find a way to block the growth of these cells, a breakthrough that would benefit not only patients he sees at Strong Memorial Hospital, but patients throughout the world. With President Obama's decision earlier this year to rescind federal restrictions on the use of embryonic stem cells, the university continues to make significant advances in this critical frontier in medical research. The university is one of the most active stem cell research centers in the United States. Currently, 40 scientists at the universities oversee labs with $87 million in grants for several stem cell research projects. Among them is Professor Mark Noble, who is investigating the use of stem cells to repair spinal cords. Mark and his team have developed an advanced stem cell technology that promotes spinal cord recovery in animals. His work provides tremendous promise for new therapies for patients like Shane O'Brien, who was terribly injured in an automobile accident and is currently undergoing rehabilitation at Strong Memorial Hospital. And Shane also is with us this evening. Sarah Gatto, until recently a student in the School of Nursing Accelerated Program, soon to be a nurse at Strong Memorial Hospital, has worked with a remarkable program in our School of Nursing called Step by Step to help incarcerated mothers reconnect with their children and prepare for life outside prison. Today, of the 115,000 women in federal and state prisons, more than half have young children who typically are cared for by relatives or foster care. Along with 10 other nursing students, Sarah led workshops at Albion Correctional Facility to help the women learn more about parenting skills, nutrition, and stress. 3 years ago, Suzanne Lee, an associate professor of family medicine, approached Danny Wegman and proposed adding health education to the remarkably successful Hillside Work Scholarship Connection. Hillside works by linking academic success to job opportunities, working with more than 300 employers, including the University of Rochester. Since Danny and his father started the program 20 years ago, graduation rates for Hillside students have increased to twice the system average. With 2,300 students currently in the program, Suzanne recognized the opportunity also to provide them with the tools to manage their own health. Hillside has now started Be Healthy, Be Successful. Suzanne will soon lead the university's efforts to increase the university's participation in the Hillside program. Earlier today, the university announced the establishment of the Eastman Institute for Oral Health, a new dental institute at the medical center that will integrate research, education, clinical care, and community service. With more than 140,000 annual patient visits, the medical center is the largest provider of oral health to the underserved in the region and the primary oral health care safety net for our community. Thanks in part to a $3.9 million New York State grant, the Eastman Dental Center is expanding its clinical service, adding 4 treatment rooms to Eastman Dental downtown, doubling its patient capacity, and opening a new urgent dental care clinic next January. Here's a question I suspect many of you did not anticipate. Why does the average squirrel live 10 times longer than the average rat? For my staff who worked so hard preparing me for this speech, including Jenny Leonard, Steve Dow, Lamar Murphy, and Michelle Rogers, that question was perhaps only second most in their minds in recent weeks. The foremost question, which I suspect they will long remember, was my insistence upon finding a full frontal image of a Norwegian lab rat. Please admire the triumphant squirrel and the anxious rat that Steve Dow brought to us. Why does the average squirrel live 10 times longer than the average rat? Scientists in our Department of Biology, led by Associate Professor Vera Gorbanova, believe that the answer to this question may help us find a cure for certain forms of cancer. Vera hypothesizes that squirrels, which can live for up to 24 years, have developed an anti-cancer mechanism that allows them to slow down cell division, including the uncontrolled cell growth seen in cancer. By understanding how this previously undiscovered mechanism works, Vera believes it may be possible to prevent certain forms of cancer in humans. Some children with autism only eat foods of a specific color, texture, or taste, a finding that prompted brain and cognitive sciences professor Luisa Beneto to focus on understanding the genetic basis of autism. Today, the chance of being diagnosed with a form of autism is 1 in 150, making it more common than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Luisa discovered that children with autism are less able to identify tastes and smells than their peers. In February of this year, she was awarded an NIH grant to identify the hereditary source for these atypical sensory perceptions. This study may help isolate new genes involved in autism and could lead to new diagnostic tools for this disorder. Mathematics professor Douglas Ravenel is part of a team that has solved one of the great unanswered problems in algebraic topology, known as the Kerver invariant problem, or to its closest friends, the ARF-Kerver invariant problem. Algebraic topology is a way of describing the commonalities among certain shapes. Now watch this. The classic example is a coffee mug and a donut, each of which has one hole. If they were made of wet clay, one could be molded into the other without adding or losing the hole. Neither shape could be molded into a ball, however, because a ball has no holes. The Kerver invariant is a number that topologists use to define shapes in certain dimensions. Topologists had anticipated that specific forms of shapes occur in infinitely many dimensions, but Doug's team has shown that they exist in only one more dimension beyond the few already known. This solution gives mathematicians new tools with which to tackle other problems in new ways, including the very nature of time and space itself. Any of you traveled to Turkey this year, take a hard look at the 10 lira bill. On it is a Turkish professor who did early research on this problem, and if you read very carefully, you will see the mathematical formula for the ARF-Kerver invariant problem. Research scientists like chemical engineering professor Qing Tang are leaders in engineering innovation. Qing's discovery of efficient organic light-emitting diodes, or OLED, was described by CNN in 2005 as one of the most significant innovations of the past 25 years. OLED screens offer superior image quality, wider viewing angles, and are so flexible that they can be rolled up like a newspaper. Qing is now researching how to use similar technology to create a new type of solar energy cell that may be so flexible and so much less expensive to manufacture than traditional solar energy technology that could be used in applications unthinkable today, such as by being woven into the threads of a jacket to automatically recharge a BlackBerry or cell phone. Associate Professor of Optics Miguel Alonso models properties fundamental to all types of life, such as waves and rays. Recipient of a prestigious 5-year National Sciences Foundation Career Award in 2005, Miguel is passionate about sharing his love for scientific discovery and inspiring a new generation of researchers. He often works to increase the exposure of Rochester High School students to science through such programs as Seeds for Change. Associate Professor of Chemistry Todd Krause, working with scientists at Eastman Kodak, has removed a significant roadblock in efforts to create less expensive and more versatile lasers. An optical quirk called blinking has baffled scientists for years. Todd's team has solved this problem by creating a tiny crystal that constantly emits light. With Blink-3 nanocrystals, lasers and lighting may soon prove to be significantly less expensive to manufacture. The university is deeply involved in efforts to address the national energy crisis. Our Laboratory for Laser Energetics, or Laser Lab, has focused on a potential breakthrough by analyzing whether nuclear fusion can be used to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Unlike nuclear fission, which produces vast amounts of energy but also produces radioactive waste, fusion has the potential to generate even more energy while generating no nuclear or radioactive waste. The fuel for fusion occurs naturally in water, making it an essentially inexhaustible resource. Now, it's uncertain that fusion power can be achieved in our lifetimes. If it is, this will be a game changer, potentially as drastic as the shift from horsepower to electric power. Recently, our laser lab signed an agreement with the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory to work on a fusion-fission hybrid system that potentially could transmute the radioactive waste from nuclear reactors to harmless waste. Our students also continue to show a real commitment to addressing the demand for sustainable energy sources. On April 22nd, Earth Day, the university's new biodiesel bus, the Big Green Bus, began service powered by French fry fats and other waste from campus dining services. This was a student-initiated project led by undergraduates David Borelli, Dan Fink, and Eric Weissman, who also designed and constructed the UR Biodiesel Lab. The University of Rochester's significance extends beyond science and technology to national policy making and business leadership. All of us at the university were delighted when President Obama selected university graduate Steve Chu as his Secretary of Energy. Steve is the first Nobel laureate named to a presidential cabinet. As director of the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, Steve refocused that lab's work to advance biofuels, artificial photosynthesis, and solar energy. Now as Energy Secretary, Steve will play a pivotal role in national efforts to address global climate change policy, renewable energy, and the nation's power grid. Alumna Heather Higginbottom, Deputy Director of President Obama's Domestic Policy Council, credits her experience as a Rochester political science major and the opportunity to work as an intern in Washington with whetting her appetite for politics. After 20 months as Obama's policy director and more than a decade of experience working for policy reform on Capitol Hill, Heather is now charged with helping to develop the programs that will advance the President's domestic agenda. University of Rochester trustee Ursula Burns on July 1 will assume leadership of Xerox Corporation and be the only African-American woman in the country to lead a Fortune 500 firm. Xerox currently has 55,000 employees worldwide. Ursula has long been recognized as being among the nation's most influential business leaders, and we are proud that she has served as a member of the university's Board of Trustees since 2002. Researchers at the university's Mount Hope Family Center are partnering with local programs to help children and their parents form stronger bonds. Mount Hope helped a young mother named Rashida Grant, who showed signs of postpartum depression during a checkup at Strong Pediatrics. Typically, mothers like Rashida are referred to a community mental health clinic where there is limited follow-up. Instead, she was referred to the Building Healthy Children program at Mount Hope Family Center, where she received cutting-edge care directed by staff psychologist Bree Scribner. Bree is part of a team at Mount Hope working with community partners that takes a holistic approach to addressing the needs of families, offering parenting, education, and therapy, along with food, housing, and transportation assistance. Associate Professor of Religion and Classics Dan Beaumont is partnering with local organizations to help Rochester's homeless men get back on their feet and to bring overdue recognition to one of Rochester's musical legends. Last Sunday, local and nationally recognized musicians performed in tribute to the late Delta bluesman Eddie's Son House at a benefit concert for the homeless at Water Street Music Hall. Dan, who teaches a course called The Blues in the Department of Religion and Classics, has written a book about Son titled Preachin' the Blues. Born in Mississippi, Son House moved to Rochester in 1943, where he lived in obscurity for most of his 20 years until he and his music were rediscovered in the 1960s. Sunday's benefit concert raised money to support the Catholic Family Center's efforts to build a permanent housing facility for homeless men. The site will include a life and vocational facility to be called the Son House Research Center. Okay, I gave you one question before, let me give you another one. After 600 years, why does Robin Hood keep coming back? That is a question that scholars, critics, filmmakers, and artists will ponder this fall when Rochester hosts an international Robin Hood conference. Event organizer, English professor Tom Hahn, anticipates that the highlight will be the 21st century premiere of the 1922 silent film version of Robin Hood, starring Douglas Fairbanks. Newly restored by the George Eastman House and the Museum of Modern Art, this classic will be shown at Dryden Theater with university musicians performing live accompaniment of the newly reconstructed original music score. The three-day conference is expected to draw international attention and further invigorate the enduring legend of the hero of Nottingham Forest. Transforming ideas not only strengthen and enlighten communities, they inspire a new generation of artists, scholars, and entrepreneurs. Eastman alumna Maria Schneider is an artist whose originality has helped transform the business model for professional musicians. Maria was one of the first artists to produce a CD using the artist share model, in which consumers finance projects in exchange for web access to the artist's creative process. The CD earned Maria a Grammy in 2005, the first ever given for an album distributed entirely over the internet. Many of Rochester's students are applying their training to improve and strengthen the local community. Among them is Ozma Parker, who will receive her MBA from Simon this Sunday. Ozma put the skills she learned in marketing, finance, and economics to use to help develop a revitalization plan for the Jefferson Avenue area in partnership with the City of Rochester and the Jefferson Avenue Business Association. This project is part of Vision Connect, a new initiative that links Simon students with small businesses that need help developing business plans. The Simon School's commitment to community engagement similarly was evidenced by a series of free economic forums hosted by faculty experts and alumni this past year. Simon School Dean Mark Zupan says in the face of such economic challenges, he felt the school could play a critical role in educating and informing the public. These forums address topics including bankruptcy, retirement investments, market volatility, and entrepreneurial opportunities. Warner School of Education Assistant Professor April Luhman is applying her scholarship to support local teachers and students. She is focusing her efforts on science education and has created several programs based on the idea that the best way to learn science is to do science. The guiding principle is at the heart of April's program, Get Real Science. The initiative offers Warner graduate students the opportunity to hone their crafts and interact with local Rochester students through several outreach efforts, including a summer action camp and an after-school program. Each year, the Memorial Art Gallery, exhibitions and programs showcase some of the nation's most cutting-edge and innovative artists, including those whose works are on view now in the Glassware Show. Some of the 60 artists in this major traveling exhibition employ highly sophisticated glass working techniques, while others incorporate found or recycled objects. A Unity of Opposites, a companion show to Glassware, features contemporary glass sculptures by Rochester's own Michael Taylor, internationally known for his distinctive work. Michael has built an international reputation for his use of form, line, color, and light, such as Light Mantra, recently installed in the James P. Wilmot Cancer Center. Many of his works take inspiration from math and science, with visual references to binary code, mechanics, and DNA. This year, the University of Rochester was thrown a curveball. It's the same curveball thrown at the entire country. The university responded well. What pleases me most was the work of the university leadership team and our board of trustees. We stayed on the same page. We have positioned ourselves for further progress, but recognize that our work has just begun. Achieving the strategic goals of a university is not a mercurial process. It's not accomplished in a month or a year. It requires perseverance and commitment. I am proud to be associated with a university that understands that. I'm confident that we'll be ready for whatever the future throws at us. We will continue to make substantial progress implementing our strategic plans. I like to say that universities are forever. Tonight I want to emphasize the university will forever be a vital part of Rochester and proud to be a vital part of Rochester. I thank you so much for joining us for the garden party. We will have a reception throughout this building in just a few moments. And I want to say, perhaps in closing, that having worked with this community for the past 4 years, I'm beginning to feel like I'm a true Rochesterian, and I can't imagine a finer place on earth to live. Thank you so very much.